Hi, everyone. It's my honor to introduce Iisaaksiichaa Ross Braine to you now. Iisaaksiichaa is our tribal liaison at the University of Washington, and he's the director of wǝtëǝbʔaltxৱ, which is located on the Seattle campus. It is our longhouse and just an absolute treasure in our community. I hope you get a chance to look it up, if not visit when you're on the Seattle campus. Iisaaksiichaa is a UW alumni. He's been at the University of Washington for more than 20 years in some capacity, either as a student or as a leader on our campus or as tribal liaison, and his role is quite important to our community and to our campus and to our students. Iisaaksiichaa has a Bachelor's of Science in Forest Management. He has a Master's of Science in Information Science. He is from Montana. He's a citizen of the Crow Nation. And the reason I invited him to the course is that he is among a leadership team on our campus and works specifically in Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity at the University of Washington. But he's an individual, when you walk into his presence, he will embrace you no matter who you are and no matter where you're from. He understands our university. He understands our community. He understands our state. He is someone who will embrace you, who's someone who will inspire you, and someone who I've asked to introduce us to the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement, to introduce us to where we are and why this place matters, and a bit of our history, and a bit of those who came before us. So please welcome Iisaaksiichaa Ross Braine. Iisaaksiichaa Ross Braine, you're a tribal liaison, and you're director of wǝtë øbʔaltxৱ, our intellectual house. I'm going to have you describe your leadership role in a moment to students and what wǝtë øbʔaltxৱ is. And you've been really a thoughtful leader on our campus. But before I talk about your role, I want you to talk to our students, and our students being students from Bothell and Tacoma and Seattle. With COVID, our students may be on campus and maybe all over the world right now. But they're University of Washington students. And I want you to start by talking about the fact that you were a student and you decided as a young man you wanted to come to the University of Washington. Talk about why you chose to come to UW. And what are 3 accomplishments that you're most proud of during your time as a student?
Well, thank you first for having me, Ed, Dr. Taylor. I really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know Dr. Taylor, I hope you have time to meet him on campus, virtually. Great professor, great mentor. I'm happy to be here today. My name is Iisaaksiichaa. I'm a citizen of the Apsaalooke, the Crow Nation of Southeast Montana. So you hear I'm from Montana. So as an uninvited guest here, I need to acknowledge the fact that where my home now stands and occupies is Tulalip, or Snohomish territory. And so just like where my home is, the University of Washington occupies territory, and we'll get into all of that. Yeah, I decided to come to the UW very young. In fact, I think it's because as a young man in Montana, there's not much to do in the wintertime. A lot of snow. And so I had just happened to turn on the TV at the time, and on the Rose Bowl was UW Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines. And so that drew my attention in because we won, and we won the national championship that year. And I was like, I really like that. I was like, I like those colors. I like that place. I want to see more about this. And so at 9 years old, I knew I was coming to the UW. I know I just dated myself, but at the same time, I knew very young that I was going to be a Husky. And even though both my parents went to school in Montana, I begged them for the University of Washington. And so my parents, being as supportive as they are and have always been, moved us to Washington so that I could get residency and then come to UW, which was kind of sad because I left my family, my community, my language, my people, and my state-winning basketball team to come to Eastern Washington. But I went to college and I went to UW. And actually on the 25th was my 20th year. So September 25th, I've been at the UW for 20 years now.
Congratulations.
And so, thank you. And I think the question was 3 of my most proud accomplishments. Wow, there's always, when you start looking at it and making a list, I'm proud of a lot of things. I'm proud of our students who graduate. I'm proud of our faculty who challenge systems, and all of those things. But for my own work, I think opening wǝtë Intellectual House was a major accomplishment. I'd been involved with that project since I was a first-year student at UW, and to have opened it on Thursday, March 12, 2015, just 5 years ago, was one of the greatest accomplishments that I've done.
Let me ask you, so for students that might not even be from the state of Washington, and when you say open it up, tell them, just describe, give them a picture of where it's at and what it is and what purpose it serves. And when you walk in, what do you see? Describe
Perfect.
it.
Okay. So wǝtë is a longhouse style facility. And for those who don't know who the Longhouse is, those are the houses and the buildings that were on the land pre-contact. And so the American Indian, the Alaska Natives, the indigenous people, the first people, however you want to identify them as, were here, and they built longhouses. And so our goal was to bring a longhouse back to campus. For those of you who don't know, each one of our campuses occupies tribal territory: Tulalip, Muckleshoot, Suquamish, Puyallup down to UW Tacoma, and so and then some unnamed, unrecognized tribes as well. And so when you come, you open up, you see the building, and it looks just like a big shed. And so that's what actually the style is, a shed roof style. We built it again to repatriate some ways, the language, and to make sure that there was space to show that American Indians and Alaska Natives aren't in the past, but we're very, very dynamic. We're still here. And at the same time, we wanted to grow accomplices and allies and advocates, and teach them our ways as well, and share ways. Many of us have indigenous roots, and so it's really good for us to remind ourselves of that in this space. When you as students come in, everybody's welcome. Everybody ought to be there. We want you there. You students, you come in, and you're going to smell fresh cedar. Oh, it's so beautiful. I miss it. and I miss the students, and we miss you. We miss hearing your voices and the laughter and the challenges. And so those are what I miss the most, is hearing the sound of the students talking, working, and all of those things. The other goal is, because we are federally recognized peoples, so we're not a minority, an ethnic minority, we are a political group. And so part of my other job as a tribal liaison is to ensure that those rights, privileges that we've earned, or signed treaties, executive orders, or acts of Congress, remain intact. And so that includes data sovereignty, that includes research, a lot of things. So it's a clearinghouse, but it's a longhouse style.
The other thing you accomplished, Iisaaksiichaa, you had a role in writing something called the Land Acknowledgement for Seattle. Can you describe what that is? And then I'll ask you to recite it, because you know it by memory.
Sure. So the Land Acknowledgement is a practice that is not very, it's not familiar to myself. You know, it's not a way that I grew up. But when we moved into Washington Territory, we learned that it's important, and that tribes practice acknowledgement of space. And what I really loved about it is that we're acknowledging people who were from here and who are still here. And so it's because of that we did it. So the way that the project, that the statement was created, it took over 9 years. And of course, it took hundreds of years before that. So we put it together in about 9 years. It took tribal consultation. So our group and our team met with federally recognized tribes. We even met with non-recognized tribes in order to follow our consultation guidelines by the federal government. And we put it together really quickly, because we wanted to make sure that we were acknowledging the land that we're occupying, but at the same time, the thing that ties us all together is water. And so that's why when you hear the statement, which goes, the University of Washington acknowledges Coast Salish peoples of this land, which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. I'll let that sink in. And the reason why we said those three is because we're acknowledging tribal sovereignty. And while I do understand, and I'm very aware that it is very Western focused, the fact is our right to self-determination is a legal status. And at the time we wrote this, those are the three locally recognized tribes. There's also the Suquamish and the Puyallup. So those five are the ones that we're closest to. It's an ugly history, because some tribes have been erased. Some tribes have been forced into other nations. And And so that's why we say tribes and bands within them. For those who are displaced to them, we want to make sure everybody's recognized.
Thank you. I'm looking over your shoulder. Tell us what that sign says.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so that's my third accomplishment. I mean, I also met my wife on day one, and I have 2 children. Probably my biggest accomplishments, right? And then my degrees are at the bottom. But when you look over my shoulder here, you see this sign. No, that's not Photoshop. That is real. This is actually on site. So the University of Washington is on a village, and that traditional name for that village is called Sloweek. And Sloweek, you know, I have to have the sound. And we've been working on this for an awfully long time. And the speed of the work has picked up with the new hiring of our vice president and university diversity officer, VP Ricky Hall, and worked through the UW Native American Advisory Board. We said, hey, we need to have an acknowledgement of the village that the university is occupying. We need to have some kind of acknowledgement of that and a repatriation of the language. And so we worked with them, the UW NAB. We worked with local tribes. We worked with historians, tribal historians, and then tribal language professors. And we were able to find this name. And Sloweek is what we decided. The reason why we chose this site is because Sloweek is the address that the Longhouse stands upon. So our address in the past was 4249 Whitman. Now it is 4249 Sloweek. And the reason why we push for that is when you come to University of Washington campus, and for those of you who may not know history of the Native people here, our building stands between Lewis and Clark. So we're between Lewis and Clark, who discovered the West, right? Then on another side, you have Governor Isaac Stevens Way. Isaac Stevens was the person who made us sign our treaties or put us on reservations. He was a superintendent. And so very painful history. And the Whitmen were missionaries. And in the missionaries in the past, it's very similar to other Aboriginal or Indigenous groups in Canada, in Australia. We were forced to learn English, this language. We were forced to cut our hair. If we spoke our language, we were beaten. And that's who the Whitmen were. They were missionaries. And it was painful to have that address on our building, Whitman Court. And so VP Hall, myself, and the UW Board of Regents agreed. And so we changed it, and it took us 3 years, but we just had that installed in July. And so when you come to wǝտրǝbʔaltx̑, we're on Sloweek. So there's a lot of words to learn.
Iisaaksiichaa, so this is the class of 2020 and a course on 2020. And campus is quiet because many of our students are at home. Some are here, but the campus is still quiet. Some are all over the country and all over the world. When you think about this class and you've worked with so many students, what is your hope for these students that are coming? What is your hope for their 4 years here? And draw from your own experience as a student and give us several wishes that you have or hopes that you have. Would you use hopes or wishes? What language would you use? And offer them some thoughts and wisdom.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. In our way, the Crow way, when we want to bestow blessings or petition our creator or mana or the science, however you identify your higher power, we say wish. And so I have many hopes for you, but for wish, I have one very specific wish. We know it's a crazy time. We have all known that. For you students, incoming first year, transfer, and international students, it may seem especially crazy. And I think that's something we're all reeling from. And so my wish is that you have health, okay? So health, healthy spirit, healthy mind, healthy body, and have everything healthy, right? We want you to be healthy. Your mental health is so very, very important, especially in these anytime. But when you're in education, it can get very stressful. Some things can get overwhelming, but there's always other practices to get through that. Your academics will come. You know, you've all gotten to the UW. You know how to study. You know how to take a test. You know how to write a paper. Of that, there's no doubt. But many of us have come here without practicing wellness. Take a break, stand up, walk away, practice the 20-20-20. If you don't know what that is, look away from your screen 20 feet for 20 seconds. You know, just take time to look away from these screens. And so that's my wish. I wish you health. We're going to come back. We will be back in class soon. There is no doubt. But for now, I just want to make sure and hope and wish you good health.
Iisaaksiichaa, we wish you the same. Thank you so much. You were wonderful.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.